Join the team. Yes!
Hey, this is the McGuire Review, and we are going to be taking a look at a really cool game today. It is currently on Kickstarter from Ares. It is Masters of the Galaxy. This is actually a really cool title. You can see what you have available here on the table. Now, final components may be a little different than what you're seeing here. Obviously, this is a prototype edition. So let's go right into that. Because this is a prototype edition, and you can see that it is fairly close to production. I'll get this box here out of our way a little bit, and you can see kind of the rest of the components that we have here. This is very close to a production copy of the game. So what we're going to do is I'm actually going to do a giveaway on this one as well. So here's how we're going to do this. You need to be a subscriber to the channel. You need to comment below, and that's how I will pull from the comments one random subscriber of the channel. The channel does need to be at 3,000 subscribers. So that's the trigger point. If we can get to 3,000 subscribers, I will give this game away. We're very close to that. We're less than 300 away from 3,000, so I think we can definitely do that. So if you like this game, if you aren't subscribed already, hit that subscribe button, share this link. I really think you're going to like this game. So this obviously is a space exploration, influence, dominance kind of game. It's for 12 plus, 2 to 4 players, and 60 to 90 minutes. So let's talk a little bit about what this game has to offer. Again, it's currently on Kickstarter. The links will be in the description below. Please go check this out. It comes at a good price point. So what I'll do here is a quick run through the components, and then we're going to take a look at the rule book, and we're going to use that to guide us on a couple different things as I show you what gameplay is going to look like. So over here, you're going to have your classic resource card that is going to be able to show you what you can do in the game. So this is going to be your reference card, how to get resources, how to get supremacy symbols, how to win, the card type icons, and how to get cards. And that's going to be listed right on that card for you. You can see right there with those symbols and the text that they put on the card. Very easy. Each player does get one of those. I'm going to move over here because you're going to see these bags, and I like to set up kind of a 3-player game when I do my run-throughs. So this is the fourth player's prototype component bag, as well as these little wooden tokens here, which represent the bases. You'll see in the Kickstarter that these are looking like we're going to get actual miniatures for these instead of these wooden discs, so that's pretty exciting. Here are the other bags for their players. We have a purple, brown, and gray. This one is a green. And then they do have their associated tokens for each one of those bags that represent the base stations and the bases that you're going to be setting up within these various systems. So we'll get to that here in a second. What you're going to see here are the cards that are accessible in the game. You're going to have expansion cards, progress cards, commerce cards. These are kind of the 3 different types of building cards you're going to access over the course of gameplay. You then will have leader cards, conflict cards, and government cards. You will gain those as you place bases on the board. So we'll talk about that here in just a little bit. These tokens here are the black hole tokens. When you set up the board, if it isn't a 4-player game, you're going to have areas of the board that a player would not start in. And the players will start in the corners. There are stars that are on these boards here right in the center, and that's really where players are going to start, and they're going to start venturing and branching out from those locations. Any area of the board where a player wouldn't be located, you would take these black hole tokens and you would place them over that area for the player, and you would also place one on the most nearest system from that starting area, and that would be inaccessible throughout the course of game. Looking right up top here, we're going to have our resources for the game. Now, there are 4 different types of resources in the game. We'll read about those. And there's also a few of these black colored cubes that are left, and we'll talk about what those do because those are special, and there are not as many of those as there are every other resource. There are only 5 of these each for each player. Right over up top here, we got our race cards, and these are awesome. This is one of the things that I really like about this game is the artwork and the style of the game. And that's another thing that I really like about this game is the artwork that's in the game and the feel of the game. So I really like the board and the look that it has. You kind of have that star system sort of look. I'm a sucker for space games, so I'm really drawn into this type of artwork and look. You've got the little systems and the planets that revolve around the systems. All of this, I like what they're doing here with the board. It feels very fun to me. These race cards are awesome. The artwork on them are so cool. The different races that they have, you'll be able to see here is Cyclops. They've got some really funny ones. Zong here. They've got the basic human. There is some like somewhat of a mouse kind of looking race. You know, you'll see that. I'll put that up in the video. Bear, load the video. You'll see that up over here. A little bit of closer look on some of these races that you can get. I like the rocks here, the little bird type race. So that is very cool. You will see a really cool amount of artwork that's within each one of these cards as well. Great artwork in, the developments from spaceship yards to nano assemblers. I mean, it's just really, really cool artwork on these. I love the artwork on the leaders as well. Those are all cool. Almost every single one of these leaders are unique, and the artwork is just so awesome on them. I'm really excited about that. So it makes the game fun as you go through and you're playing. So that's kind of a run through on the components that we have here. So now what I'm going to do is get into the book, because when I first pulled the game out of the box and I opened up the book, I was surprised to see how large the book was. It's about the same exact size as the actual box, which you do find a lot of times in board games. This is a quite large rule book. And it's got some weight to it. So when I opened it up and I started looking through, at first I thought, they probably could compress some of the text and the images. But then the more I read this book and the more I used this rule book, I found that I actually really like the fact that it's larger like this. And I'll show you why. When you open up this rule book, you're going to get a great view of the game, of what you need to do in the game. You're going to get good high color images and pictures. And as you go through this rule book, it's really going to lay everything out for you very cleanly, where you're going to be able to see how to set up the game. The text is nice and big. I like that white text on the darker background, and you'll see every single page is like that, where it really lists out the examples of gameplay and the text and how you do the game. So, Aries, well done on this rule book, and I do think the rule book is laid out in a very clean manner as well. The way it explains the game and then follows up with the details that you need to be successful to win and play the game. So, I always spend time calling out some stuff on the rule book, because I think rule books are one of the most important components in a game, and I think a lot of people just glaze over and they don't really include the rule book or the design of the rule book. And I'll tell you, if a game doesn't have a good designed rule book, you may not have a very good experience playing the game, regardless of how good the game is. The rule book is a critical component to a game. So I like to call that out. So good job here on the rule book. So now let's get into what's going to happen when we initially start this game up. I'm going to set this over here for now and take a look at our various bags. So I've set up a 3-player game. And the first thing you're going to want to do is each of these players are going to get a bag. They're going to get their associated base tokens that match that color. You will notice there is an orange here for the green. That's just because this is a prototype version of the game that I have here, although it is very near, I would say, what we would call production. The first thing you're going to do is you're going to take 5 of each one of these resources, including the black tokens here that you see. And you're going to put 5 of each in your bag. And then you're going to shake those up. And that's essentially going to be your resources over the course of game, which you're going to be drawing into that bag and blind pulling out 3 at a time. You may draw resources depending on various cards you acquire over the course of the game, but for a standard turn, you're going to be drawing 3 resources out of that bag. We'll explain how those resources are important, and we'll also explain how you want to build up the resources in the bag, maybe for certain types only. That comes into various different ways to win the game. So we do have that set up here. We have our resources in each one of the bags, and then we have our species cards here. So one thing that's interesting about this game is all the cards are visible at all times. You won't ever have cards that you're sort of holding in your hand and hiding from other players. They're always going to be face up, and everyone's going to be able to see who has what, and you're even going to be able to see what the next cards are going to be drawing from these decks. So the first thing you're going to do is you're going to shuffle up all of your decks, and you're going to keep them face down to start the game. You are then going to flip your species deck face up. First player is going to get to draw 2 cards off the top, and this is a standard way of drawing cards from a deck. You draw the first 2 cards, you then pick one of them, put the other one at the bottom of the deck, or you put both of them at the bottom of the deck, and you just take the card that's on the top, which would be the 3rd card in the deck to start off. So let's say I drew these 2 cards here, the Crystallides and the Myrmecoids. And these were the 2 that I had in my hand. I could pick one of those. Or I can say, well, I could put both of them back and I could be the humans. Well, there may be reasons why you'll want to select these various cards. You will notice on these cards, there are a few different things that are on the card. One of them has to do with combat. You'll see one here in the middle that has to do with drawing build cards. And then the one in the bottom is a kind of an agenda that you're working on, where if you're able to place your resource and those colors will match your resources on this card, you'll be able to gain various things. So as you play the game, you'll want to look in the book and have someone kind of explain what these various things mean, so you can have a little bit of a better chance maybe in drawing what race you might want to be. I'm going to take the crystallides and I'm going to put that right down here. So I'm going to take this one and I'm going to put it there. Now the next player would do the same thing. Draw 2. Well, you know what? I'm going to be the cybrids and I'm going to put that human on the bottom. The next player would draw 2. Well, I want to be this Omok, which is kind of that rat-looking race. I'm going to take that and that's going to be my race. This goes on the bottom. These cards now are no longer needed. We can set those to the side. We then would have the first player draw from their bag a random color. And they would look at that color. It can't be black. It could be any other color. Okay, it's red. So what we would do now is we would find a starting zone that would match that color. So then that would be right here, the red. So that would be first player's starting zone. And what you would want to do is kind of turn the board. That corner would face the first player. And every other player would kind of go around from the left and say, okay, the next system to the left would be the second players. And then the third player, if there was only 3 players, they get to choose between the 2 systems starting areas that were left. If there are 4 players, obviously it would just be third and then fourth. So that's how that would work in choosing the location around the board that you would start. Now, all these locations around the board are a fair cut in where you start. After all that's been done, you would then turn over all of your decks. And the reason is because you don't want to pick a race or maybe, you know, how you get your board and know ahead of time that you might have an advantage based on what cards may be on the tops of these decks. So at this point, you then would grab all of your decks, you'd turn them over, and everybody would be able to see exactly what is queued up kind of first on that deck. So you turn each one of those over, you'd be able to see that, which, you know, is a mechanic that I kind of like, because as you play the game, it isn't a blind draw from these decks, and you also can determine which you want to go for. So you may look here and see these yellows and see, oh, the pirate fleet, I'd really like to get that, versus the terramorph here in the expansions, which the yellows are the commerce. So you may want to come here and build up your commerce resource, which is yellow, because you want that pirate fleet, versus terramorph that we have here, which would be from the green resource, which is expansion. So let's go ahead and look at what a game turn would look like. And I'm going to open the book here and allow this to guide us, because I want to make sure that we talk about the goals of the game here and specifically how you can win this game. And then let's talk a little bit about the resources that we have here, because I really like the way they've designed these resources. So the goal of the game is the first person to gain the galactic supremacy wins the game. And it is an immediate win. It isn't a, once you accomplish one of these things, everyone else gets a turn for the rest of the round, and then let's see if they can catch up. No, it is an immediate win. So there are 3 ways to win the game. And I really like the design of games that offer multiple ways to win the game. And what you're going to find here is there's even a combination between the ways of winning a game and the ways of designing your strategy around that with the resources that you gain. I absolutely love that gameplay mechanic of this particular title. So the first way you can win is called expansion. And I'll just read this to you. Place all 9 bases of your color on the game board. So again, these are your bases that you have here. And over the course of play, you're going to be taking these bases and you're going to be placing them on the board as you make routes. And these routes are these lines right here. Now, to make those routes, it has to be all the same color of a particular resource. And for this one, it could either be red or green. You can choose that, but it all has to be red or all has to be green. Once you're able to make a route, you then, on a turn, can place a base. And there's various things that will happen when you place bases, depending on how many bases are in this particular system. So that's one way. Get all 9 of your bases out there on the board, you immediately win. The second way is domination. So collect 5 identical supremacy symbols on your cards and systems. So on these cards, there will be various supremacy symbols. And if you're able to collect all 5 of them on the game and you have those cards, you can then immediately win the game as well. And you may think, well, that might be a really easy way to win the game. Just collect all 5 of these symbols. It's not. It's just as difficult. It's very well balanced. It's just as difficult as the other ways of winning. The third here is called Conquest, which is capture a second starting system by establishing your base on it. That is the ability of being able to capture another starting system, which is very difficult as well. You have to do a lot of combat, get into conflicts, and take over others' systems that they may already own. So that's a very interesting way of winning, and that's going to be more combat based. So that's one thing that I really like, is the fact that, you know, when you go through the game, let's say you're someone who likes to do the fighting and the conflict in this space battles, to be the master of the galaxy, you can do that. Let's say you're someone that wants to work on set collection, okay? You can do that. Let's say you're someone who just wants to work on trying to do a lot of routing and getting bases out on the board. You can do that. So I like that the game offers all 3 ways of being able to win, and it's something where you can start from the very beginning of the game and use a strategy that supports that way of winning, or maybe you just get lucky throughout the course of game, and every time you take your turn, it's like, well, you're kind of getting there in all 3 angles, but then one of them works out for you in the long run. So it isn't like you have to pick one and stick with it. You can play the game every turn as you see fit and end up winning in one of these 3 ways. So great design. Okay, so let's get to the actual turn, what a turn would look like when you play the game. There's 3 things you're going to do. Okay, the first thing is you're going to take your bag and you're going to blind draw out 3 resources. Now, over the course of gameplay, you're going to be discarding cards, and when you discard cards, you're going to be able to gain resources, and you can choose which ones you want. Some of them do indicate, and you can put that right back in your bag. So let's say you're going for one of these win conditions, or let's say there's something on your card that requires a lot of yellow, like this one here, the Cybrids. If I get 6 yellows, I can gain these agenda influence symbols here at the bottom. So I may want more chance of pulling a yellow out of this bag, so I may want to bulk up on that yellow. So the first thing we're going to do is blind pull 3, pull those out. Okay, we got a red, a blue, and a yellow. Now what you would do is allocate those resources. And you would decide how to allocate those resources, and those could be done lots of different ways. You may decide that you want to use this red, and let's say that this was a start, this was first player. You want to use this red to put right there. And you want to start a red route towards this area because you want to settle this little planet orbiting this system, and you want to actually put a base here. So that may be where you want to put the red. Now you have a blue and a yellow left over. If you can't allocate it, you'll throw it right back in that bag. But let's say you want to come up here. Well, I'm going to go ahead and put this yellow right here. You do not have to fill these in order. You do, however, have to fill this line in order. You can't put a red here and then a red here. You do have to kind of fill this in order. You don't have to fill these. So I'm going to put a yellow right there, and that is on my track that allows me to select any type of building card that I would like to do. And this blue one here, I'm going to go ahead and allocate right down here, because I'm going to start working on maybe gaining this kind of agenda and getting some of these symbols. Because remember, if you are able to collect 5 identical supremacy symbols on your cards and systems, you do have domination. So collect 5 identical symbols, all right? So this allows me to have one of 3 different types of symbols, and that's one towards that set of 5. So that's how I'm going to allocate mine. Now the last thing you're going to do is you're going to discard your used cards. As you play the game, you're going to gain cards. And that's going to be by settling bases, usually. You're going to get those cards, and you're going to have those, and they're going to be up, showing, again, no cards are hidden. They're all showing to everybody. And what you can do is you can execute actions on those cards. So most cards will have the little resource area on there as well. This one takes 1, 2, 3, 4 blues, and it allows you to do something. Some cards are like some of our leader cards here. You can get resources put on there. They have secret agendas, and it will have a little symbol on there that actually, it looks like in games where you like kind of rest and tap a card, it's got a little card turned to the side. If you see that symbol, it means you actually discard the card. And when you discard a card, you're able to take that action, and then you're able to gain resources. So if you discard one card, you gain any resource that you want, one of those, put it in your bag. You discard 2 cards, you can gain 3 different types of resources. If you discard 3 or more cards, you can gain up to 5 different types of resources. You can take those and put them in your bag. Not the black resources. Those are all divvied out at the beginning of the game. So you would take those resources, put them in your bag. And that's going to get into that strategy of, okay, I want a lot of yellow. This character here has a lot of yellow to do things, and I may be making a yellow route because I might be trying to get to this system, so I'm going to just bulk up on those yellow resources and get them in the bag. So don't think of cards as things that you have to hang on to for a long time. I find over the course of gameplay, get your resources out, allocate them to cards, be able to execute those abilities on the cards, and then get those resources coming back in your bags. Because once the resources go out on the board, they're out on the board until, and this is where the black cubes come in, when you draw a black cube, you have the ability to cancel one of your projects. So everything that you're working on here, you can almost think of it as you're a project manager in space. So all the PMs out there, you're going to love this game because essentially you are being a project manager when it's your turn. These are all the projects that you're managing as you allocate resources and different types of resources too. When you do pull that black cube, you're able to cancel one of your projects, maybe because it's not going as successful as you would want it to, maybe because you just need those resources back to allocate them to something else. Whenever you cancel, you will take those resources off the board, put them back in your bag. So now let's talk about the resources that are available to us. There are 5 different types, and I'm going to just read off each one of these here. We have the blue, which is the scientific resources. So these are things like engineers and research institutes and laboratories. And it says here, if you have a lack of scientific resources, this hinders you from researching new technologies. So new technologies are going to require that blue resource. We've got yellow, which is economic resources, like centers of trade, transportation, stock exchanges, banks. Lack of economic resources leads to social instability. So we do want to keep that on your board because you're going to have social instability. Bear social instability. We have industry resources, which are green right here. Those are going to be things like workers, farmers, miners. And then that is going to create a threat of hunger and public discontent if you don't have a lot of that. Military resources are our red. Those are going to be things like the military, the army, the various different conflict units you're going to use when you get into conflicts over the course of game. And then if you don't have very much of that, you're obviously going to have a very low military power, which might affect you when you get into those conflicts trying to conquer various areas of the board game. So again, go back to our goals of the game. If maybe Conquest is something that we're really after and we're going to be going after capturing other starting points of the game, you may want to bulk up on that red so you're ready to go when you get into those conflicts. And the last one here being the black, which is called the administration, and that one is really going to be the bureaucrats, the courts, the secret services, and a loss of those is the control of your situation. So you're going to want to balance which one of these resources you want to build up over the course of gameplay. It isn't necessarily just, oh, I'll just take random ones every time. You really are going to want to start to focus in on which type of resource you're going to want to start collecting based on how the board is playing out and what cards you're gaining and what it really looks like, so you can have that strategy of making that win. Okay, so that's really what I want to use the book for, to run down the various different types of resources and what a game turn would look like. So let's just do a really quick game turn. I think you've got a really good feel of what this game entails and how it's going to work. Again, it is a fairly simple game. I just ran through pretty much everything that you're going to want to do to be able to play the game. There are some more complexities in the rulebook here when we get into conflicts. But outside of that, everything else is very straightforward. And even with conflicts, it's very easy. You know, you will have conflict cards that you'll be able to draw and have. And you'll play those conflict cards. And then there are resources on either side of the card. And it's kind of a match-off of resources between 2 different players. And whoever the winner is, they may be losing various bases or systems that they're in. And then the winner is able to then put a base there. So that's really how those conflicts are going to work. So back with our first player here, we did allocate those resources when we were going through our example here of the red, blue, and yellow. The next thing would be to play those cards. So we drew, we allocated, now we're going to play. Well, we don't have any cards to play, so it then would pass to the second player. The second player would then draw 3 of these cubes. So we'll look and we'll see here, 1, 2, 3. Okay, 2 reds and a blue. Let's say the second player was here for the purposes of this explanation. And we're going to go here and we're going to see, well, we got a blue and a green and a red and a yellow. So there is a red here. And I drew 2 of these reds. So you know what? I'm going to start to do a trail here of red from this area to here, and I'm going to choose red because I drew, you know, a couple more of those, and I want to get a route going. That's just something that I want to do. And then I've got this blue, and I can't really use the blue for anything else. There's nothing on this card that's blue on my race. So, you know, there are some planets that are around this starting area. So I'm going to go ahead and settle one of those planets. So I'm going to take this blue, let's set this blue right here. I'm going to settle this planet. It doesn't have to be the color that I have. It is blue, and I do have blue, but this can be any resource color except for black, because the black cubes are only used to cancel projects. So I'm going to go ahead and settle this planet. When you settle a planet, you will gain 2 cubes if you use a resource that's a different color of the planets, but you will gain 3 cubes if you use the resource of the same color of the planet. So I got lucky here that I had blue, and this was a blue planet. So now we'll gain 3 of my choice. Well, I'll go back to my, oh, you know what? Got a lot of yellow here. I am going to take 3 yellow cubes. I'm going to take those. I'm going to put those right in my bag, and now I have a bag that has 3 more yellow cubes. Now at this point, I would decide, do I have any cards to discard or use? I don't. I would then move on to the next player. So the next player would go and draw 3. So we'd pull those 3 out. Okay, we got a yellow, a green, and a red. We'll say player 3 is right here. Their base would be there. We'll go ahead and put the base for the first person on there as well. And we got a yellow, green, and blue. Okay, I could start a track if I wanted to. Let's look here. I think I am going to take my green, and I'm going to put it right here on my track to be able to get a random card when I fill that up. And I'm going to take my red, and I'm going to put my red right here. So I'm going to do a red route because this planet right here is red, and I don't have anything on my card that's red. So I'm really just probably going to do a red route up through here. I'm going to take my yellow, and I'm going to actually settle on one of these planets because it's yellow and it's a yellow area. So that allows me to get 3 of any type of cube that I want. And I am going to take 3 blues because this guy's got a lot of blue going on. So I'm going to take those 3 blues and I'm going to put them in my bag. Now, there's been the first round of each player. You then would start the second round. And you'll see on that first round, there's not going to be a lot of discarding of cards. But as you gain, you know, influence and as you gain routes and you settle areas, let's say that I was able to build this out and I was to settle another. So that is our second player, settle another base in this area here. For the first base that you settle, you will be able to gain a leader card. So I'd grab these 2 leader cards just like I would any other card. I'd draw the top 2. I then would decide, do I want one of these or do I want this card that's on the top here? Well, Woody Condor. He's one of my favorites, so I'm going to set him down and I'm going to draw that leader card, and then this card would go to the very bottom of the deck. So now Woody Condor would be this player's card, and you know that really works out for me because if we look at these supremacy symbols again that are on these cards, well, you need 5 of the same one to do a win condition. Well, this one here has 2 of these little red kind of starburst symbols, and then our Woody Condor has 1 as well. So as long as I keep Woody and I don't use his ability and discard him, I keep him out on the board, I now have 3 of those same symbols towards that set collection of 5 to be one of the win conditions. So that would be a really good thing to do for that player. Now, another thing you can do is once you continue to settle more bases, because you can settle more bases of your own if you own that on that area. So when you settle the first base, you get a leader card. You settle the second base, you get a conflict card. So you can draw one of those, and then you need one of those cards when you want to actually get into someone else's area and go into conflict. You'll need one of these conflict cards. Or if you settle a third base within that area, you will then be able to draw a government card. And the government cards are right here. So these cards here, democracy, dictatorship, monarchy, anarchy. They allow you to do different things in the game, and they work the same way that all these other cards do. You'll see they have an area to fill up resources, and that will tell you right on the card exactly what that will allow you to do. These are more powerful cards in the game, as you will only be able to draw one of those once you get your third base in a system. So that's how that works. I love the aspect of kind of building up the board with these cubes. You're building up bases, you're building routes, you're gaining cards that might have supremacy, symbols that are going to allow you to win. You're working on a strategy of which resources you want to take and put in your bag to give you a higher percentage chance to pull out a certain color that you may need that draws into your strategy. So that is Master of the Galaxy. Again, we are going to be doing a giveaway on this game. I will give this game away to one of the subscribers that comment below, so make sure hit that subscribe button, make a comment below. The channel does need to be at 3,000 subscribers. We're getting very close to that. So if you really want to get in on this competition, share, like this video, get it out there. Remember, the Kickstarter is up now. Go back this game. You're not going to be sorry. But if you do win the prototype, you will get this well in advance of anyone else, and you can start playing the game. So hit that like, click the subscribe below to join the team, ring the bell. This has been the McGuire Review, and we'll see you next time.